they wore to the wedding, and it was most important to have a peace garment in their society. These women, I call that going home. That is Bakasaka suit in Cote d'Ivoire, way in the backwoods, and some of the wealth there was considerable. But they told a story about how in the days past, during the days of their grandmothers, women had held a prominent place in the textile world, where they, of course, took they had men weaving their spun cotton. But with the coming of the colonists, they had lost that power, because the colonists, the Europeans, brought in sheep threads, and so the men got the threads from the Europeans, and they were totally independent of the women. And that was kind of the disintegration of the women's power. And as you travel through the markets, this was just metal, but if you break through that, you would find instruments of slavery, chains and all of that, right in the market, and just still there as reminders. And they said, when the white man came to Africa, we had the land, and they had the Bible, and now we have the Bible, and they have our land. And the missionaries are still there. And I guess what upsets me, there are 1,000 things to upset you, but I look at the death rate. The life expectancy is back down to about 42 years. But the people do not know the germ theory. They do not understand cause of death. And they're still going to the spirit house to discover about the justness or whatever of the death. But the materials have just continued to flow out of Africa. And if someone wants a finish, let me put it like this. You can buy a can of tomatoes in Africa with all the tomatoes growing everywhere. These were my neighbors on one side. On the other side was the judge and his wife, and he was one of the people responsible for putting the current president in office. But that's how mixed the communities are. But when people came from the rural, and when they come from the rural societies, even today, this is how they live. Basically a wood frame covered, it's covered with plastic. That's the shelter. But at night, when the lights are all gone, I could sit out on my veranda, on my upstairs as far up as I could go. That may be patio, I don't know. But I could hear the men tell stories, and you could just hear them. You knew they were animal stories because you make the sounds of the various animals. And so there was something very precious about village life right there in the middle of the city. And every stick and every stone had its place in their lives. Everything was every little scrap was so precious. But come and go with me to the market. This is in Accra, in the city in Ghana. And that's market, that's every day from sunup to sundown. And some of the women, when they first come, they become kayayo. And kayayo are the porters into the market. You can't take trucks and even hand trucks into those little narrow paths. So women take on jobs where they carry 100 to 150 pounds on their heads into the markets. But that's one of the jobs. And then you may graduate and get your own little packet of hand-dyed cloths you have. And I was just so enthralled with the hand dyes, and people were saying to me, next time when you come, maybe you can get some European cloth too. Because this is for poor people. She has graduated to a sewing machine, which she may or may not own, but she's working in the market. And Aisha, I'm not sure she's still living, actually had a silk screen printing factory, and one of her pieces is out there in the collection in the African store. When I went back, she was one of 5 women who I had befriended who ran I don't want to use the word brothel, but it was like where they sold beer, being visited in the evenings. It was like totally respectable, but 1 out of 5 had survived in that 5-year period. And so she's coming toward me to greet me, but this is where she lives. This is how she lives. And she left me inside her house. I pulled out my little camera and made a snapshot. And these are her memories, these are her treasures. And besides that, she had a mat and a chair in there. And that is the average life and goods. But when you step out of that house, you are popping. No one would guess. And if you sent your child to the market to sell bananas or cookies for the day, and these children are not posing. This is the poise of African people. The twins who lived in my community. And I never figured out where they were sleeping, but they had a little box of a store. But during the day, this is how they look. This is playtime. And this woman had this little scrap of hand-dyed cloth, and she's got her baby gathered up in there, and she's about her business for the day. But that just gives you an idea about the importance of fabric in West Africa. And I think we brought some of that over with us as a memory, because look at us on Sunday. Fabric is treasure. It's a treasure. And this is the wealthiest of wealthy, but people may save a whole lifetime in order to buy one of those woven Kente fabrics. We celebrate our textile tradition. This is on the campus of the Institute of the Arts. And he happens to be a dancer, but this is how he's dressed for class. And this is a morning garment. He's just walking around in his neighborhood with the replica of a dinkwa cloth. It's just like a dusty street, a dusty path, but this is how people respect clothing and fabric. And what we had in common as people of the African diaspora is this love of color and pattern. And this is across the street, the neighbor who said, oh yeah, well we've got a quilt somewhere here, but there's so many similarities. And this is Morning Market in Korogo. And you can see the love of color, the warmth. This is by a quilter from Sandersville, Georgia. And when you look at nature in Africa, it gives you an idea about what may influence you. And the love of animals. People have monkeys instead of dogs and cats. And of course, monkeys are easier, they're a little more independent. When I think about what I think makes our vision what it is the sun. And if we've had 1 million generations on this earth who looked into the sun and then looked at an object, that object had to be bold and colorful in order for us to enjoy it. And I think that that's part of of the influences. The sun and the moon and the sun and the day and night and the flowers and the animals are here. Everybody but me went out to the tree where the dyes come from. I wasn't about to walk through that tall. I'll take the photo. But these are the dyes which comes from the earth, and they use the young woman dyeing fabric in the market. And it's a very unhealthy place, but very picturesque. These women were oftentimes domestic, maid servants, and they wore the hand-dyed, hand-woven indigo panels, and they waited on their employees who wore European printed imports. When I go back, I plan a year from now to go and live in Mali as long as I can survive. I plan to live among the Bambara people who dye the mud cloth. And I want to get one of them in and work in secret for several months, developing puppets and marionettes out of scraps, first from this country, then using their work, and develop a genre of art that people there can afford to buy from them. They won't be dependent on men or on exports or the tourist market. There's so much about our work that's about stories. And in this country, you see a lot of writing. And this is Ethiopia. There's writing, and it's Bible. And Amina Robinson, her writings are stuffed inside her work. She doesn't call them quilts, though. This is my work, and I remember being fascinated seeing writing on a piece of cloth when I was a little girl. It was like a newspaper, and could never get that image out of my mind. But people wear fabrics like this that commemorate family members or political parties, and there's nothing more powerful than to see 200 or 300 people. I have a photo, people marching down the street, all in the same, celebrating and supporting the same politician, but still their garments are different. And this has been a practice since the recorded time of ancient Egypt. And here you can see the writing of the date, which were what we call hieroglyphs.